Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. On Capitol Hill, two Republican leaders emerged Wednesday as leading contenders to replace Kevin McCarthy as Speaker of the House, a day after his ouster by far-right Republicans brought Congress to a standstill. One contender is Ohio Congressmember Jim Jordan, chair of the House Judiciary Committee, leader of the far-right House Freedom Caucus. Former wrestlers at Ohio State University have accused Jordan of failing to intervene as a team doctor sexually abused young men in the 1990s. He was one of the wrestling coaches. Also announcing a run for the Speaker's gavel Wednesday was Republican Majority Leader Steve Scalise of Louisiana. Reporter Stephanie Grace told the New York Times Congressmember Scalise once described himself to her as like David Duke without the baggage, referring to the former Ku Klux Klansman and white supremacist. President Biden called on Republicans to quickly elect a new speaker and to change what he called the poisonous atmosphere in Washington. Biden said he's worried congressional gridlock threatens to derail White House efforts to win new funding for U.S. aid to Ukraine, though Biden said his administration has enough funds in reserve to continue sending arms shipments for now and suggested he has a path around Congress if it fails to approve more funding.
We can support Ukraine in the next tranche that we need, and there is another means by which we may be able to find funding for that, but I'm not going to get into that now.
On Wednesday, the Biden administration said it supplied Ukraine with thousands of assault rifles and more than 1 million rounds of ammunition seized in the Persian Gulf by the U.S. Navy. The Justice Department says the arms were being sent by Iran's Revolutionary Guard to Houthi rebels in Yemen in violation of a UN arms embargo. Meanwhile, peace activists are demanding lawmakers push for a diplomatic solution to the war in Ukraine instead of sending more weapons. On Wednesday, Capitol Police arrested 11 members of the anti-war group Code Pink as they occupied the office of Vermont Independent Senator Bernie Sanders. Code Pink's Medea Benjamin read a statement Sanders delivered in February of 2022, calling for peace talks between Russia and Ukraine.
So let's sit down, let's negotiate, and let's come up with a diplomatic solution. That is the good Bernie. Yeah. That's the Bernie we want. Not the other Bernie who is okaying billions and billions of dollars in weapons and says you can't talk to Putin. And we have one word answer to Bernie when he says you can't talk to Putin, because he said that to us. We say, try. Right? Try. We want to see what the result of Biden talking to Putin is, right?
In climate news, new data show global average surface temperatures last month shattered the previous record for September, rising to a staggering 1.8 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. That's well above the Paris Climate Agreement's limit of 1.5 degrees of warming and half a degree warmer than the previous record. This follows the hottest August and hottest July ever recorded. In northeastern India, at least 14 people are dead, over 100 missing after extreme rainfall in the state of Sikkim caused a dam to partially collapse, washing away roads and bridges and flooding an army base. In Brazil, scientists are blaming an unprecedented heat wave for the deaths of over 150 endangered pink river dolphins in a lake in Brazil's Amazonas state, where water temperatures reached 102 degrees Fahrenheit. Brazilian authorities say the Amazon rainforest is facing a severe drought that could affect 500,000 people by the end of the year. This comes as a new study in the journal Science Advances finds monsoon rains that sustain the Amazon rainforest are nearing a critical destabilization point and could soon drop by 30%, leading to a dieback of the forest. The Biden administration's waived 26 environmental laws to speed the construction of the U.S.-Mexico border wall in Texas. The waivers circumvent the National Environmental Policy Act, the Clean Air Act, the Safe Drinking Water Act, the Endangered Species Act, and the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act, among others. It's the first time President Biden's used his authority under the Real ID Act to waive environmental laws. In a statement, the Center for Biological Diversity said, quote, "Every acre of habitat left in the Rio Grande Valley is irreplaceable irreplaceable. We can't afford to lose more of it to a useless medieval wall that won't do a thing to stop immigration or smuggling. President Biden's cynical decision to destroy a wildlife refuge and seal the beautiful Rio Grande behind a grotesque border wall must be stopped, they said. Previously, President Biden had said he would not build another foot of border wall. In the occupied West Bank, Israeli forces killed 2 Palestinians and wounded dozens of others during late-night raids. Israel's killed over 200 Palestinians this year, including at least 27 children. Elsewhere in the West Bank, armed Israeli settlers violently attacked a Palestinian-American family farm in the town of Deir Dibwan near Ramallah Sunday night. The attackers set the property on fire, spray-painted the word revenge on a door, and destroyed the family's olive grove. Meanwhile, emergency medical workers in Gaza have reported a spike in ankle injuries among protesters. Israeli forces, including snipers, appear to be deliberately shooting at Palestinians' legs and ankles, wounds that are extremely difficult to treat and can lead to amputations. Human rights groups also say the brutal tactic is unlawful. Recent protests in Gaza have condemned Israeli raids in the West Bank, the storming of East Jerusalem's Al-Aqsa compound by Jewish settlers, and the blockade of the Gaza Strip. After headlines, we'll spend the rest of the hour looking at the devastating reality for Palestinians living under Israeli rule. In Egypt, opponents of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi say they've faced violence and other obstacles preventing them from registering their candidates for December's election. Under Egyptian law, candidates have until October 14th to secure at least 25,000 signatures from supporters. But dozens have been arrested attempting to submit signatures, while others have faced attacks by well-organized mobs of pro-government activists. This is Rania El-Sheikh, who says her delegation was attacked by thugs as they attempted to register signatures.
When we felt that the fight was brewing, we tried to move aside. While we tried, I was pulled by my hair and they started beating my colleague on his shoulder.
Ahmed Tantawi, an outspoken critic of President al-Sisi and the most prominent figure hoping to run against him, temporarily suspended his campaign last week after dozens of his supporters were arrested by police. Meanwhile, researchers at Citizen Lab and Google's threat analysis group found Tantawi's personal smartphone was infected with predator spyware and that Egyptian authorities were likely behind the hacking attempts. Mohammed Anwar al-Sadat, head of Egypt's Reform and Development Party, called on Sisi's government to reverse course to provide free and fair elections.
If the election is not held in the way that the entire world expects it to be, I say that this will lead to really bad results for the reputation and credibility of this regime, and even for its future.
Back in the United States, damning new information has emerged in the bribery indictment against New Jersey Senator Bob Menendez, his wife Nadine, and 2 of their 3 co-defendants. Nadine Menendez hit and killed a pedestrian in 2018 car crash in Bogota, New Jersey. But not only did she not suffer any legal repercussions, she received a new car following the lethal crash. According to police reports and dashcam video, Nadine Menendez claimed the 49-year-old victim jumped onto her windshield. She was not held by police or tested for drugs or alcohol after the crash. Video of police questioning her immediately after the crash shows an officer treating her deferentially.
Our job is to investigate everything that happens. That's what we're trying to do. Obviously, the more information...
Do anything wrong?
No. Look, I understand. It does expedite our investigation when people can help us out. Because if we can clear you from any wrongdoing, I want to get you home and comfortable and not here anymore. You get what I'm saying? Nothing against you.
The fatal crash took place before Nadine was married to Senator Menendez, but while the 2 were dating. She received a brand-new Mercedes-Benz 4 months after the crash. According to court documents in the bribery indictment, the $60,000 car was gifted to Nadine by New Jersey businessmen Wael Hanna and Jose Uribe, 2 co-defendants in the bribery case. Prosecutors accused Senator Menendez of offering to put pressure on the New Jersey Attorney General's office to go easy on an associate of Uribe. According to the indictment, indictment while Hannah, an Egyptian-American citizen, quote, worked to introduce Egyptian intelligence and military officials to Menendez for the purpose of establishing and solidifying a corrupt agreement, unquote. Senator Ben Cardin, who has replaced Menendez as chair of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, just blocked $235 million in U.S. military funding to Egypt. A judge has set a trial date of May 6 in the bribery case against the Menendez couple, Hannah Uribe and another businessman, Fred Dibies. And President Biden's approved another $9 billion in student loan relief affecting some 125,000 borrowers. More than half the amount will go to 53,000 people who've been working in public service for at least a decade. The rest will be split to provide relief to those enrolled in income-driven repayment plans and borrowers with disabilities. The latest move to lessen the burden of student debts comes months after the Supreme Court blocked Biden's plan to cancel up to $20,000 in student debt for tens of millions of people. Despite the right-wing court's ruling, the Biden administration's been able to pass $127 billion in debt relief for over 3.5 million borrowers. Debt activists are calling on Biden to cancel all remaining student debt. Federal loan payments resumed October 1st after a pause of more than 3 years during the pandemic. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report.